Welcome back to Greels Reels, everyone. I'm your host, Robert Greeley, joined today by University of Ottawa offensive lineman Brett Jelley. Dude, it's been a minute. Good to see you. How's it been?
Oh man, things are great. Good to see it. Super excited to be on the show, man. I've seen a bunch of the boys come and go through this, and I think like Tanner said, just waiting my call, waiting my turn. But honestly, so stoked to be here. Love what you're doing, man. You're really doing some good stuff. So just really excited to be on the show today.
Hey, I appreciate that, and I had to point out the background. You're kind of flexing the trophy case on us this evening. You've been playing football for a while, eh? The Jelley family is a football family.
Yeah, man. I've been playing football probably for, I don't know, 15 years, I'd say. I think I started around 6 or 7. Started here in Ottawa, played for Myers through the City League, and then worked my way up through OBFL and played for the Provincial League here in Ottawa. And then started with Ottawa U. And my brother, same thing, played Myers in Ottawa. And my dad even played football here. So yeah, man, football and baseball really run through this family. So yeah.
Yeah, because your brother is playing baseball for, I want to say Laurentian, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, he did commit to Laurentian, but when Ottawa U, they ended up getting an OUA baseball team, like literally a month after he signed with Laurentian. So he was going to Laurentian, and then he saw that Ottawa U and Carleton were like an official OUA baseball team. So he kind of pulled the emergency brake on that and ended up coming to Ottawa U because that's what he kind of wanted to do all along. But they weren't an actual OUA team, so when he got news that they were going to be a team, he did a 360 and he wanted to come to Ottawa U. So I'm happy about that, man. It's awesome having a brother, even though he's not on the same sport as me. It's awesome to have a brother at Ottawa U playing on the varsity baseball team. So it's awesome.
Yeah, got to be that hometown hero. So, but two brothers who play varsity sports. I mean, I'm guessing the childhood was just a constant battle of who's the top athlete.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, anyone that has a brother, younger, older, even sisters, right? Like any siblings that play sports together, it's always a competition. Everything's a competition. Like whether it's who hit more home runs this year, who had, he played running back, I played offensive line, so we couldn't really measure anything for football, but I guess it was just championships, right? That's what we measured. And, siblings, right? Like everything's a competition. Who can eat their food fastest? Who has more hot dogs at in between games? Like everything is a competition. You ask my mom, you ask my dad. It was crazy, but I mean, that's how you kind of better yourself in sport. It's competition. There's nothing better than it.
Who was the better athlete when you guys were kids, and who's the better athlete now?
Well, if he's watching this, he's probably shaking his head and pointing at himself and all that. You know, he did play more sports than me, like actual organized sports. When he was growing up, he was football, baseball, and hockey. He was 3 sports all year round, nonstop, overlapping sports. So, and I only did the football and baseball. I never got into hockey. It's super weird, being from Canada or even Ottawa and not even touching a hockey arena. Like I just never got into hockey. So we'll give him the advantage right now, or when he was younger, I guess 3 sports versus 2 sports. We'll give him that. Right now, I don't know. It's pretty even right now. We're both playing on university sports teams, so we'll call it even for now.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, that's something that I always thought you did play a little bit of hockey. So it's interesting to hear that because you're a big Sens fan.
Love the Sens. Yeah, no, it is so weird. Like I never really got into hockey. Like I like going to the ODR a little bit and played a little bit of ball hockey, but I would say I'm way more of a like hockey fan than even playing. But yeah, huge Sens fan. I know this year wasn't their year. It is what it is. They have a young core though. Like I think I can speak for a lot of the Sens fans that everyone's really excited to see where this team's going to go.
Okay, question though, as a Sens fan, are you still on the hashtag Melnick out?
Uh, you know, for a while there, I was on the hashtag Melnick out for a while, but like he's kind of like kept his name out of the news a little bit, and there hasn't been much to fire up about. For a while there, it was pretty dicey. A lot of the Sens fans were pretty pissed at him, but right now. I think everyone's kind of looking past that. As long as we continue to go forward, building the team, integrating the new guys into the system, I think we're doing something right. So right now, not Melnick out, but as soon as, he, picks someone that he shouldn't, or crazy trade or anything, then it's going to be back on that hashtag for sure.
How do you guys feel where you're sitting in the draft now again this year? You're probably going to get another solid prospect.
Yeah, so we're sitting at number 10. There's some great guys like McTavish, who's from Ottawa. He's a Valley guy, so he's a really good prospect. And then there's a Swedish guy. I can't pronounce his last name, but there's a couple guys that we got our eye on. I would say hopefully we draft a forward, center, right wing. We need some help there. So I think we're in great spot at 10. I was kind of crossing my fingers, hoping to move up to 2 and 1. It was a small chance, but it should be interesting, man. The NHL getting another team in there, it's gonna be interesting for sure. I can't wait to watch next season, really.
Yeah, the draft is going to be a weird one, though. I mean, there's barely any film.
Yeah.
At all. Like, yeah. I mean, you had the Q played in, like, they had their whole playoffs, and it's still kind of going on. But I mean, the OHL hasn't gotten any hockey in, which is a huge talent pool.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so I'm curious how the draft is going to go when these prospects are going to pan out. I mean, I've seen some of them play, and they are fantastic, right? Like, I mean, there's some of them who have obviously taken off overseas and played through the pandemic, but it's again, like, you can't really see those live streams because they're so tough to watch. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. But I mean, in terms of the realm of prospects, and obviously as a Sens fan, there's so many of them right now for you. Who are you most excited for?
Man, it's so hard to just name one. Geez. I don't want to be easy and just say Stützle. Like, everyone's excited for Stützle, man. The guy has so much talent, such a raw goal scorer. I love Stützle. I love that first line of like him, like Norris and Batherson and Tkachuk. Even Tkachuk, though, like, he's young. Like, he's super young. Their whole team is young. So if I were to give one answer, it'd probably be Stützle. I'm really excited for Sanderson to come up, hopefully next year. He looked great. Bernard Docker, who played a little bit this year, looked awesome. So, man, there's just it's almost, it's crazy to think how many prospects the Sens have coming up the pipeline. So my answer right now is Stützle. Absolutely. I'm ordering my jersey for next year. Like, it's a done deal.
Yeah, I think that definitely is the easier answer. I will put in, because you mentioned Tkachuk, and I've honestly struggled with that name even since I've had Nick Mattinen on, who played alongside the brothers there and whatnot in London, right? Well, I think Matthew was the one who went through London. We're going down hockey, and I was prepared for football a little bit here now, right?
We'll circle back.
We'll circle back soon. But I'm still very excited to see, like, the full ceiling and just the caliber of Thomas Chabot. I think that is going to be a menace on the blue line in the NHL for a long, long time.
Yeah, man. He has always impressed me. Always impressed me. Like, even this year, like, he played huge minutes. Like, the guy was playing like 30 minutes plus 30 minutes every night, and you get a little fatigued, and there were some people that were like critiquing him pretty hard and everything, but he's still young. He just signed that huge deal. Like, we have him still locked up for 8 more years. I love him. I really do. Like, amongst the critics and all that, I really like Chabot. Like, last year, he was probably my running for the captain. That's how high I was on him. I said, man, this guy locked him up. Like, we should throw in the captaincy. But after Brady he stepped up this year, he was like the heart and soul of the team. So I think what I would do, obviously, I'm not Melnick, I'm not Dorian, would be give Brady, once you sign him long term, give him the captaincy. But I'm with you. I'm high on Chabot as anyone else. I love him, absolutely love him.
Now, you're also an Eagles fan, right? So going back to football, so I mean, obviously, like, we don't really have an NFL market in Canada, and I mean, there is still some, there's some guys, from Canada who pop up on the, on the NFL stage. Maybe being an offensive lineman, I would have expected you to maybe be a Kansas City fan.
I know,
right? But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always so good to see that. It's really hard not to cheer for Kansas City and the Canadian talent that they have on there and the offensive lineman they have. It's ridiculous what he's doing. Working through COVID and after winning a Super Bowl, working through COVID and kind of taking a year off. Like hats off to him. It's incredible. So yeah. I always, when they're in the Super Bowl, when they're in the playoffs, obviously because the Eagles aren't making the playoffs anytime soon, I would say that is probably my team to root for, just because of him, and obviously love Mahomes, love Tyreek. But yeah, it is hard not to cheer for KC with that going on for sure.
Yeah. So how the Eagles thing start then?
I don't even know, man. Like me and my brother, again, going back to this, we always, played video games as a little kid. And I don't know what made me rotate to the Eagles. I always loved to pick them in Madden, 05, whenever it was. It was Donovan McNabb at QB, Brian Westbrook. Like I love those guys. And, I don't know, something about that forest green, the best logo in football. Like I love the Eagles logo. I love the throwback logo with the lighter green and the eagle. I don't know what made me rotate to them, but I did. And ever since I was however old, I've been an Eagles fan. So that's kind of how it started. My dad's a Chargers fan, so nothing there.
They got a bright future.
Oh yeah, they're great. Their draft this year was awesome. So yeah, he's a Chargers fan. My brother is also an Eagles fan. I guess hopped on the bandwagon, or I'm not really sure. You'd have to ask him how he came up with that. But he's an Eagles fan. My dad's a Chargers fan. So yeah, there's I'm not really sure. Madden 05. Blame it on Madden 05.
Hey, fair enough. So when you seen them win the Super Bowl a few years back, like that was pretty ecstatic.
Man, crazy. Absolutely crazy. And to do it against the GOAT, right? Like that's just the cherry on top. Like it was incredible. I like when Carson Wentz went down and tore his ACL, like it was tough. Nick Foles coming in, I was kind of nervous, but the guy showed up and they played a great game. And just to do it against the Patriots, like I think you'd ask anybody, and unless you're an Eagles fan, the Patriots were going to win that game, right? Like you ask anyone, the Patriots were going to win that game. But man, I don't know what happens, but like they were saying after the game, hungry dogs run faster, man. That's what Lane Johnson was saying. That's what Jason Kelsey, their center, was saying. Like that's what it. The dog masks were out. It was a crazy movement for Philadelphia Eagles fans. So I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Jason Kelsey's speech at the parade, fantastic.
Insane. Probably one of the best, if not the best, like post Super Bowl, Stanley Cup, NBA championship speeches ever. It was electric. It really was electric. You want to go watch something and fire you up? Watch that. Insane.
It's crazy though to think like the quarterbacks that have like stumped Tom Brady, like Eli Manning, Nick Foles, like in the Super Bowl kind of thing. Right?
Kind of like, not like, I guess kind of unsung heroes. Like Eli Manning's a good quarterback. Like I know if Sawyer's watching this, I know that's his boy. And I don't mind Eli, but like, again, it's not the big guns, right? Like Eli, Nick Foles taking this guy down in the Super Bowl. It's really crazy to think of some of the guys that he's gone against in the Super Bowl, right? Like
Matt Ryan, Patrick Mahomes,
right? Like the list goes on and on of like just absolute like legends or future legends to be, and then you get taken down twice by Eli and then Nick Foles.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's funny you mentioned Sawyer, right? I don't know if you are up on his Twitter, but he's a Bengals fan now because Eli retired, right?
I was actually, that's funny you say that. Me and Sawyer were texting before the draft, and I said, man, so like, you hoping like the Giants are right before the Eagles? Like, are you hoping what's going on? And he's like, oh, actually, I'm a Bengals fan now. And I'm like, whoa, really? And so we were talking about that, and yeah, he was telling me because since Eli retired, he jump shipped over to the Bengals, and we were talking about like who we wanted them to take at their draft spot. He's like, well, I hope Jamar Chase, but like I'm really hoping for that offense, like an offensive lineman to protect Burrow, right? Like it was kind of a crazy thing that they went Jamar Chase. Like, again, the guy's super talented, but after the season that Burrow had, he got hit a lot. He's coming off major injury. Like you would think you'd want to anchor that offensive line a little bit, right? But
Yeah.
they went with pure skill, and they got a great guy in Jamar Chase. Don't get me wrong, but it was kind of crazy. Me and Sawyer were talking about that a little bit. So
I guess it's like anything, if you do add such a weapon, yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase can get open pretty quickly.
yeah,
That's one of those things where he can maybe get the ball out a little bit faster, I guess,
yeah,
for the second option there.
yeah,
But, and, who knows? We'll see what happens. But sometimes, offensive linemen, it's like, okay, do we want to spend a high draft pick or, because we can go
yeah,
out and buy one essentially in
yeah.
a way, right? So,
Yeah, it's true, right? Like they could either there was a ton of offense linemen in this draft. Like there was good picks in the second round. Like the Eagles took Landon Dickerson. Like, man, so high on that guy. The guy, like, it was just awesome watching him at Alabama, you know, injuring his knee, not getting like the surgery on it, coming back in the like national championship at the end of the game to have the final snap. Like that was tears, man. Tears. Like the guy's an animal. So yeah, it is, you see that in the NFL where you can try to buy your offensive line, trade like low draft picks, like little dump in like cash and all that, and buy your offensive line. But it's crazy. It really is.
and I mean, who knows? Maybe maybe the Bengals offensive line are just sitting there being like, "Hey, yeah, we almost got the future of this franchise in the face already,
Yeah.
absolutely killed. So like maybe let's put a little extra weight on the bench here
Right.
right now."
Exactly. So yeah, who knows? Yeah, a lot of pressure on them for sure. Like especially they have a another future legendary player. Let's hope in Joe Burrow. Like there's going to be a lot of pressure on that offensive line and that offense in general just to get going. Right now they have
Mhm.
so many weapons, and on that offense. So I'm actually kind of excited to watch the Bengals. It's kind of a weird thing to say. No one's ever excited to watch the Bengals. No offense, Sawyer. I apologize. No one's ever excited to watch the Bengals, right? But this year it should be interesting. I'm actually a little bit of a Bengal fan right now.
I think that's just the magic of like what Joe Burrow has been able to do. And the other thing in terms of offensive linemen as well, and I mean, feel free to add to this, but I think a bigger thing in terms of development is just time, right? Like, no, there's not really a position where, strength is so much of a factor, right? So it's
Yeah,
like as you get older, you can, obviously develop that strength more, right? Because at they call it, what is it, the grown man strength, more or less,
yeah,
right? So like
that's it.
at 21 years old, you can only be really so strong, right? But
Yeah,
then at say like 28, 29,
yeah.
that's 8 extra years to develop strength, which is such an important part of that position.
Yeah, it's huge, right? Like guys coming out of college and all that and going to the NFL, like they might be super skilled and they might have like a good foundation, but that those extra couple years at the start of their development in with these NFL programs, like their strength and conditioning coaches that are just total brainiacs and they know exactly what's going on, and just all the like resources they have. The first couple of years of especially an offensive lineman's development in the NFL is huge, right? That's why you don't see a ton of like rookie offensive linemen really stepping in there first, because of the playbook is just so intricate, right? It really is. And then those first couple of years of development with the strength and conditioning and all that is really huge. But you're right, grown man strength is a thing. Like I don't know, science will never tell you what goes on there, but a 22, 23-year-old versus like someone in their late 20s, it's just different. I don't know, it is development. But as an offensive lineman, and like speaking on behalf of offensive linemen, I know that time is definitely super important. I remember coming into OUA as like just turned 18, like just turned 18, like a teenager, right? And coming in, and you show up the first day for camp and there's like men, like grown men there, and you're like, man, this is crazy. So I totally get it. The jump from NCAA to the NFL, and you see these grown men, and then coming from anywhere like CJEP, OVFL, and going to the OUA, and there's what you think is grown men, right?
Yeah, it's wild sometimes to think about that. What Well, you know what? Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. So, when you were coming up through the football ranks and everything like that, was it just an immediate throw that you were in the position of offensive line?
Yeah, well, I guess I was always a big kid. Like I remember this. We have upstairs where what we used to have upstairs is like a measuring tape or like a wall that you'd measure people's like height every birthday, right? I don't know if you've ever had that or people have that. So like on your like eighth birthday, you chalk up, okay, you're this tall. So like I remember when it was like my like sixth birthday or seventh birthday or whatever, and I was like taller than my brother when it was like his 11th birthday, like something crazy like that, right? Like I remember looking at that like years after before we painted over it, and I'm like, man, how was I that big? Like I was a pretty big kid and when I was growing up. So I guess like the automatic thing to do was put me on the offensive line or put me on the defensive line, right? Like I started on the offensive line for a couple years, and you know, 7, 6, 7 year old really. There's not you just get in the way of people. You just stand there, you stand up, and you just go stop, right? Like that's really all you do. There's not much to it. It's like, hey, the biggest guys are standing here, and you're just gonna try to stop people, right? So yeah, I really just got thrown into being an offensive lineman. I actually moved over to defensive line for 1 year, which was, I don't want to say it was the funnest year I ever had, but defensive line is so much fun, man. Like I love the offensive line, but the D line, man. Shout out to all the D line at OU. Like Tremaine, man. I don't want to say I wish I was you, but the D line is fun. The D line was a lot of fun that year, and then obviously the next year I got moved back to O line, and then that was kind of it. So yeah, no, I just got thrown to the offense line just because of my size, I guess, and yeah, that's pretty much how it all started.
Well, I do think there's just more opportunity to celebrate on the defensive line as opposed to the offensive line. You know,
Yeah,
you're not
well,
scoring every drive, but you're stopping more than you're scoring on the
well,
defense, right?
yeah, exactly, right. Like, yeah, the defensive line, they have their stats, they have their celebrations after a sack or a TFL or a fumble recovery or whatever, right? Like, we're not celebrating after not letting him get a sack, right? Like that, and we're not celebrating after our wide receiver makes a catch because it wasn't us. It's you can ask a lot of offensive linemen. It's really a thankless position, really. Like there's no stats, there's not no celebrating. Like it's probably a position that a lot of kids coming into football like almost try to stay away from. Like it's like some kids, find it boring or find it like it's not, it whatever. But I loved it. It's what I've grown up on, and I wouldn't change it. Absolutely, I love the offensive lineman, and as you get older, um, the offensive lineman really is like a brotherhood, right? Like the culture on all the offensive linemen's or offensive line units I've been on is really something special. Like I don't know if you can compare it to anything or like ask like another position group in football or any other sport. It's just there's something about the offensive line, and I'm sure a lot of offensive linemen can attest to that. But there's just something about the culture, the brotherhood, the family aspect that's just it's just different.
hmm Is that, I guess, safe to say why you gravitate towards that position and you can still stick there? Because, for a lot of people, a thankless role is a mentally challenging role, right? It's hard to stay motivated in that type of position.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely mentally tough to be there, right? Because you'd think you look at a football team and all the positions that at least running backs, big run, touchdown run, like a little bit of celebration, a little bit of thanks, right? Like it's there every position on the football field there is some sort of thing or like something that happens in the game that there is a celebration around. Offensive line, make a good push and we run for 5 yards or run for 10 yards or there's a pancake. There's not really any celebrating or anything like that. You can celebrate to yourself, I guess. You give it a little fist bump or whatever. But it's definitely a little bit you know tough like mentally. Not having like being in like a super like exciting or like thankful position. But it's something that you kind of just get used to. Any offensive lineman will tell you that you just get used to it. It's you celebrate amongst your other offensive linemen. You celebrate with your coach, your offensive line coach. That is so pivotal to to the actual position. So, it's kind of almost like your own little your circle. You celebrate with your other guys, you celebrate with your coach, and that's really all you get.
Yeah, and I actually want you to touch on this a little bit more because from the outside looking in, the role of say an offensive line coach might seem redundant to some people. Like it's like, oh, like there's not much that changes throughout the course of a game. Just stop the guy who's coming in front of you. But add in as somebody who's in the trenches there, why that is just not correct.
Yeah, no, it is a stereotype, and it's like, you're watching TV and no one's watching the offensive line, right? Like, as an offensive lineman, that's all I'm watching before the ball's snapped, or before, like, even after it's snapped or after it's handed off. Like, that's who I'm watching. Yeah, the offensive line coach is super important. Like, and I mean, my coaches that have coached me on the offensive line, like, you know, just bettered me as a person, bettered me as an athlete. Like, it is really incredible, like what they've been able to do for me, and like I can't thank them enough. And yeah, offensive line coaches they're just great people. To people, I guess, that say that just stop them, or why is there an offensive line coach? But it just goes so much deeper than that. Like, there's so, like, the techniques, and the mental aspect of making calls and counting the box right. And especially as a center, like, there's so many things that maybe I don't see that my offensive line coach would see in a heartbeat, right? And be able to tell me, hey man, like, this is what you need to do next time you see this, or whatever. Like, it's almost like another set of eyes for the offensive line. So the game moves so fast, and there's so much going on that, like, there is adjustments for the offensive line. Like, quarterback, like, adjust, like, hey, they're playing like cut on one side and hold on the other, or they're bringing the blitz on third down, or whatever it is. There is adjustments just like that on the offensive line. You just don't see it, right? Like, it's just, we just move a different way, and that's how you pick up like the stunt that's coming in on that one side, right? So there are definitely little adjustments that we have to do almost after every drive, or after every quarter, or whatever. We sit down and talk about that. But it's just, if you're not an offense lineman, you really just don't see that.
Is there bragging rights as a center that you're the only one who gets to touch the ball?
um hmm Bragging rights. Well, I mean, I guess it's a little bit of bragging rights. There's definitely more pressure that I get the ball to the QB. I don't know if bragging rights. Well, yeah, I guess a little bit of bragging rights, but it kind of all falls on your shoulders if bad snap at his laces, or bad snap over his head, right? Like, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. You get to touch the ball every play, but if you don't do your job and it comes back 1,000 miles an hour, or you miss them or whatever, then you wish you didn't have the ball. You wish you were beside me, not having to do that, right? So I guess it is a little bit of bragging rights. But there has been a couple times where the guys in the game get to touch the ball. Like, I remember Tom Rollins in the Panda game, or even a home game one time. Like, the ball, I forget if it got tipped or whatever, and it ended up in his hands. He caught it.
I remember that. Yeah.
Remember that? Like, that's one of those, I'll never forget that. So, like, there's, stuff happens in a football game. You never know when you're going to get the ball, and it could be you. So, Tom Rollins, it was you.
It is crazy to me though that technically, say you get thrown on, you're an offensive guard or an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
At, like, say you start playing football 10 years old, you go all the way to university, you play your 4 years of university, and then hey, you make it to the pros.
Yeah.
And you retire at 35.
Yeah.
25 years of playing football, and there is a chance that you actually never touch the ball once.
Right? Isn't that crazy to think of? Like that's like saying, like, oh, I've never touched the puck in hockey, or I've never touched the ball in basketball. Like, it is such a weird sport that way. Like, looking at every other, like, the big sports, it's like, yeah, like, I could go, like, I was an offensive lineman, I could go my whole career, except in practice, when you're fooling around, throwing the ball, like, pretending to be the center or the long snapper or
Pretending
whatever.
to be the QB. Come on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We wish we were QBs. We wish. But yeah, it is super weird to think that, like, a guard or a tackle that's never played center, that would literally never touch a ball in a game, or in a season, or in his career, right? Like, it is kind of weird to think that if you compare it to hockey, or you compare it to basketball, like that's like pretty weird, and like unheard of in any other sport, where you wouldn't touch in a game, like the actual like thing you're playing with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like another position in sport because I mean soccer, pretty much everybody's going to touch the ball at some point,
Yeah.
including the goalkeeper. Hockey, everybody's touch, even like the old school goon who was just out there to fight. Like they still touch the puck.
Yeah, 100%. I guess the only thing I like off the top of my head, maybe like curling. Like I don't even know. Like, do the sweepers do they throw rocks?
Yeah,
Do
they'll
you throw
throw.
rocks? All
Yeah.
right. Well, then curling, you're out. You touch the rock. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other sport. Like there's no. I don't know. It like we talk about this all the time. It's like offensive line is the like only position in like again we can try to think about this in sports where your back is towards the ball or the puck or the at all times, right?
Mhm.
Like you don't know what's going on behind you. Like it's kind of a crazy thing to think of. So when the ball snapped, it's like pretty much the only position that you're not facing the play, right? If you kind of think about that, like if you, I don't know, like what other position you're not focused on the ball.
Yeah, that's true. Because I mean, in terms of like goaltending, everything's in front of you,
Yeah, everything's
right?
in front of you. Everything
You're
else, like
you're trying to keep things from going behind you, which is a similar concept, right? Like obviously you don't want no defensive linemen or linebackers to go behind you, but yeah,
you're not focused on the ball though. The ball we could care less about where the ball is, right? Like
yeah.
our QB could be running 20 yards behind us, and like we wouldn't really know, right? Like it's kind of a weird thing to think about if you think about all the sports. And yeah, we're kind of like the only position that doesn't focus on like the ball or the puck or whatever in
Yeah,
the
because I'm trying to get like real nitpicky with this, and like I can't see it in rugby, golf, no,
Oh
like
man, like it's crazy. Coach Carl, our offensive line coach at Ottawa U that I've had for forever, he brought that up one day, and and everyone's trying to think. It's like, man, like, can I think of a sport where like you're not focused on the ball or whatever? Like, it's like, man, like I don't think so. Like everything is surrounded, like every position you surround yourself and you focus on the ball, but offensive lineman, like it really doesn't matter where the ball is, to be honest. Like we're not focused on that. It's interesting, eh?
hmm yeah, I'm really thinking here, and I can't think of anything. Like, yeah, even like ultimate frisbee. No, everybody's paying attention to the
Like
frisbee.
yeah, everyone where the disc is. Like, and even if you get into like I don't even know, like I don't even know, right? Like you're trying to think of these like even
Oh,
like
I guess like yeah, well even so like wrestling, like there's no like those like the MMA boxing, like
yeah,
there's no actual like object beside, but you're still focusing on your opponent.
yeah,
You
like
turn you,
that's the ball basically.
yeah, you turn your opponent, you turn your back to an opponent in an MMA fight, good luck.
Yeah, you're not gonna be lasting too long if you turn your back or not focus for a second. It's not gonna be a long and successful career, that's for sure.
Well, honestly, speaking of, boxing and those fighting sports and stuff like that, I mean, this is coming out in the morning of June 6th. Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul. Who you got?
Man, you know what? I'm always scared to talk about the Logan Pauls and the Jake Paul boxing matches because after watching that Jake and Ben Askren fight, like I'm a huge UFC fan. Love the
Mhm.
UFC. Been watching it for not too long, but I love watching the UFC, and watching Askren go in there and get KO'd by Jake Paul was crushing. Was absolutely crushing. Like he was kind of like the first guy to represent the UFC, and like he wasn't a boxer, he was a wrestler. He barely threw a punch in the UFC, and for him to go to and fight Jake Paul and get knocked out, but there's a lot of talk
He
about
also had hip surgery, like
yeah,
4 months
yeah. He
before the
was
fight.
also coming off major like injury surgery, and he looked out of shape. He looked terrible. He looked like a bag of milk. He really didn't look that good. And there's just something about these fights that I don't know. Like if Woodley, sorry, going off Mayweather, if
Yeah.
Woodley's fighting Jake Paul, if he gets knocked out in the first round, I'm convinced that they're taking dives for this money.
It's actually, I don't know. I'll never be convinced that there's a dive because I want to hold on to the fact that like your pride as an athlete wouldn't allow you to lose that fight by choice for any amount of money. I hope that that stays true, but obviously, you know, you never know what the individual's motivations are. Now,
Yeah.
with Woodley, it's interesting though, because like the thing with Jake is he's been smart at picking his fights, right? It's like, you know, he fights the YouTubers first, and it's like, oh, well, you
Yeah. No
haven't
offense.
fought a fighter, right? You haven't even fought an athlete.
Yeah.
So he goes and he gets Nate Robinson, who is not a boxer, but he's an athlete. So he checks off that box, right? And then people are like, oh, well, like you haven't actually fought an
Someone that
actual
fights.
a fighter, right? So then he gets Ben Askren, and that's a genius pick because everybody's just so fixated on the fact that like this guy was a good UFC fighter. You could even say great because I mean Olympic grade wrestler
Yeah.
and won
Like,
a lot of fights.
yeah, one of like the best top like wrestlers. Like his wrestling was outstanding, right? Like I
Mhm.
mean, too bad his career ended like after that Masvidal knockout. But I mean,
Yeah.
stuff happens. Like
Anybody would have been knocked out by that. There is so much more actual like genius strategy into that play that if you watch a breakdown and somebody actually analyze that for 5 minutes,
yeah,
it's like, okay, yeah, this was actually genius. Like this was
yeah,
pure strategy. And sometimes like if that like 95% of the time, like when you write something up like that, it doesn't go as well as that, but that was just perfect scenario. Like he bit
yeah,
Masvidal bit him into that as a wrestler, right? But
yeah,
again, we don't when this fight gets announced, we don't actually look at that, right? We just look at we quickly look at the wins and it's like, oh, he's finally fighting a fighter.
yeah,
But he had no striking power, right? So then, you know, Jake gets to check off that box of
yeah,
okay, well now I've done now I fought in a fighter, and then people are like, oh well, like you haven't even fight in a boxer, and obviously Woodley's not a boxer, but he has that striking power, right? So that's checking off that box. But again, he hasn't won a fight since 2018,
I know he's
right?
on the
So
4-5 loss streak. Like he's
yeah.
sitting right now, and he's kind of like I don't want to say he's irrelevant in the UFC, but in the last 4 or 5 fights, he's looked terrible. Like he doesn't
Mhm.
look like championship Woodley. I'm sorry, like he doesn't look like the Woodley of old. And yeah, so he's kind of taking this fight, and hats off to Jake Paul. You're right, he is like
He's
planning this
yeah.
perfectly. You're right. Like you just look at it, and it's kind of like step by step. Okay, I'm fighting someone, just whoever, a YouTuber, boom, win. Yeah, like you said, and then boom, I'm gonna fight. Oh, you don't fight any athletes. Fight an athlete, boom, win. Oh well, fight someone that actually has some, like mixed martial arts or some boxing or whatever. Okay, I'm gonna fight Ben Askren, who never thrown a punch in the UFC and is coming off hip surgery and is old. And boom, knock him out. Okay, so it's like, wow, you gotta fight someone with some striking, and now you're fighting an older four or five fight loss streak. Woodley, like it's kind of interesting. If he beats Woodley, this is gonna be a problem for like boxing and MMA. Like it's gonna be interesting what happens next. Like
Mhm.
I'm kind of interested to see who he picks next and like and what's next for Jake. Really.
Now, I do think Woodley wins. I do think he has bitten off more than he can chew this time. But I do want to say, with that being said, I'm not surprised if he wins because of how strategic he's been about picking it, right? So,
Yeah.
like, there's people got to realize that, like, nobody really officially signs up to get absolutely smoked in the face repeatedly and hurt, right? Like
Definitely.
there is a belief there that he thinks that this is the best possible opponent for him
Yeah.
and that he can come out of here with a victory, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, it's like there's a reason why he thinks that. It could be delusion,
Yeah.
but there is also some other strategic stuff that goes into it.
It is kind of interesting, right? Like you think about it, and like his agents and all the people that like the like put together these fights. Like it's not random by any means. Like it's definitely them sitting down for like days and weeks and like going through the UFC roster, going through like potential people that are like have a big enough name to fight, but that I can probably still win, right? So yeah, when you look at someone like Woodley, when if you were to ask me like when he was champion, like the guy was a monster. Like the
Mhm.
guy was a serious monster in the cage. But like now he's kind of fallen off a little bit, and like Jake obviously thinks that he can put his career to bed. Really, like he's jumped all over this opportunity, and kudos to him. He's making a show out of it. He is milking every dime there is out of this, and he's calling out Dana White. He's stirring up the UFC fighters, telling them that they don't pay his people enough. He's saying, I'm making more than all of your UFC fighters and all that. Like, it's gonna be a heck of a fight, and he's making a show out of it, and he's stirring the pot.
Yeah, it's that, and that's what they do, right? That's like, I mean, people get angry and then give them a reaction, but for some reason we lose this. It's like I always remember when, like, say I don't know, someone was picking on you when you were like 5 years old, 8 years old, right? They were just
Yeah.
like, say, flicking your hat or flicking you in the face, right? And like teachers or parents or whatever, they'd always be like, oh, like if you don't give them a reaction, like eventually they'll get tired of it and just move on, kind of thing, right? And where there is a flawed there's a flaw in that advice,
Oh, yeah.
but the process there is kind of like, at some point we do just kind of forget about that. And my point of going with this is essentially like, we want to watch this. We're talking about it right now. Like, that's the thing, right? So as much as, like, you give these angry reactions and it's like, oh, this is ruining the sport, you're playing into it all,
Yeah,
because this is exactly what they want. They want
yeah,
conversations, right?
you're feeding into it, right? Like, there's nothing more that Jake and Logan Paul want more than for you to talk about on this, for you to give them
Mm-hmm.
any sort of platform on social media, on everything, and even like slandering them, or like saying you love Jake Paul and I think he's going to be a boxing superstar. Whatever it is, you're giving them a platform, and that's exactly what they want. They want people to watch. They want people to buy the pay-per-view. They want they want to get paid, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, they want people to have eyes on them and see them perform, and they want to get paid, right?
So many people bought that Ben Askren Jake Paul fight solely for the fact of trying to see Jake Paul get knocked out, right?
Right?
And Jake Paul, I can guarantee you, is fine with that because it's still money in his pocket.
Yeah, exactly. He's still making millions and millions of dollars. Even if he did get knocked out, he's still making millions and millions. And that's what he wants. He wants to rile up people, get eyes on him, and like just buy the pay-per-view. Like, at the end of the day, he's a YouTuber turned boxer, and he's making a career out of this now, and that's all he wants. He wants to, just like every fighter, promote your fight and cash in while you can and be set for the rest of your life.
Pretty
Right?
much. I mean,
That's
he's
really all
still.
there is to it.
I still, I don't know. He's a whole mess in itself. I must say, I do like how Logan has been handling like all these situations, and I am excited to see what he can do, because there is a substantial size difference that needs to be talked about for this
Oh,
fight tomorrow, or tonight.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, the height difference, the weight difference, it is quite crazy that, but what are you gonna say, right? Like,
Mhm.
Logan Paul gets the opportunity to fight the best boxer ever, and
I
Floyd
don't care who,
Mayweather.
like, sorry to interrupt, but I do not care who you are. Like, I like, genuinely, if someone was like, hey, like, you have to go the distance with Floyd Mayweather, like, if you agree to this fight,
Yeah,
like, I am taking that. I
yeah,
like, and
I would
like,
take that too.
honestly, I would take that with, even without the money. Like,
Yeah,
that is a sporting
that
experience.
yeah, 100%. Like, that's like saying that's like Jordan's people calling you up and say, "Hey, Michael Jordan wants to go one on one with you." Like, that is an honor and a privilege, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like, just to be like anyone that's been in the boxing ring with Floyd Mayweather or whatever, that is exceptional status, win, lose, or draw. And obviously, all of them have lost. He's 50-0, right? Like, I like,
Yeah.
again, but anyone, even McGregor, when he fought him, like, it's an honor, like, crossing over sports and being able to fight the best of all time. Like, it's crazy to think that someone that was doing YouTubing and is now a boxer, a amateur boxer, is fighting the best that's ever done it. Like, that's kind of crazy. That's like someone coming off the street and challenging Jordan one on one and saying, "Yep,
Mhm.
we're gonna pay per view this, and we're gonna like." It's kind of crazy to think about it.
Oh, it is absolutely insane. Like, the power of social media and everything like that is just astronomically, to the point where you can't even quantify what can really happen, right? I mean, we use this specific example, but I mean, there's so many, like, in the tech world and stuff like that, right? Like, I mean, Marquise Brownlee, I love his tech reviews. His tech reviews are incredible. He's got a little over I want to say 11 million at this point subscribers on YouTube.
Okay.
Because of his YouTube channel and just how incredible he is. He's interviewed Barack Obama. He's interviewed Kobe Bryant, right? Like that is stuff that just like there's things in life that you really, if the opportunity is there, why would you turn it down, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, yes, obviously, like if you're fighting Floyd Mayweather, there is like a more like health concern. Like he could very much like long term probably hurt you,
Yeah.
but I mean, still, I don't know, man. I've been doing a little bit of boxing and like I just feel like, okay, like here's decently how I can protect myself a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And yeah, like I'll take the I'll take the hits as they come. And then for the rest of my life, somebody looks at me, you're not tough, dude. I got in the ring with Floyd Mayweather. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? I'm
Yeah.
not tough.
Who have you gotten in the ring with, right? But you're
You
so
always
right.
have that.
You're so right, Rob. Like like with social media and like someone's following or someone's status on social media can get them a lot, like open a lot of doors. Like you're saying that guy, like being so popular with his tech reviews and then being able to interview these people like Barack Obama and Kobe, right? Like just because of their following alone, right? So Logan Paul making some waves on social media and starting in boxing and then all of a sudden he's playing Floyd. Like it's crazy.
I've always wanted to write a book, right? Like when I was in third grade, I said, "Hey, I want to be an author," right? Like that's kind of how all this transpired, and I'm still
Yeah.
very much in the field, right? I had a conversation with a publishing company, and it was like, okay, so like, what do you look for in terms of like this type of book in order for you guys to publish it? It was honestly a little unfortunate because it was just like, oh, well, like we kind of want to see you have like X amount of followers on Facebook, X amount of followers on like Instagram, or like this type of personal brand. And obviously, personal brand is important in terms of selling it, but there is a little bit that's just like, oh, like what gets published now? Like, who's actually to say that this is like cool
Right.
or anything like that, or like a substant like this is good literature, or this is just somebody with a following, right? Like,
Right.
where can we draw that line to actually recognize that now?
Yeah. The line has kind of been pushed further and further. Like you're right. Like publishing a book or doing anything, right? Like if you have enough, they're looking at Facebook friends or Instagram followers or and all that. Like is like looking like measuring someone's platform and like how many people subscribe to them or whatever to be able to like do something. It's crazy, right? Like like just going back to Logan Paul, right? Like because he's so famous, he's able to fight Floyd Mayweather. Like when you're talking to that publishing company, oh, you have to have a certain amount of this and a certain amount of that to be able to even like think about this, right? It's kind of crazy that it's come to that, right? But you're right. If you have a big following, you can like someone that is a superstar in whatever and they have a huge following, they could write a book and there would be no questions asked, no matter how bad the book, how good the book, or even like movies, right? Like start up your like try to like direct your own movie or fund your own movie or whatever. Like if you have the following and obviously the money, but if you have the following, it's the ceiling is endless and it's too bad really. Like it's too bad that it's come to that you have to like have some sort of following and be something in order to like chase your dreams.
I love the creator economy. Obviously, like I have a bachelor in communications.
Yeah.
I'm doing my master's in digital media. Like I love this stuff, and it
Yeah.
is like, so I love looking at it, right? And Nelk, I
Yeah.
you know started with two Canadian guys. Obviously, now it's a massive company. They're behind the brand Full Send. They
Huge.
just launched an alcohol, which
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah,
is
they're happy dad.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is right up their alley, right? And the thing is that because obviously whenever you start a business there's a risk of like, okay, like is this going to work kind of thing, right? But when you have like for Nelk, like obviously they have ambitions because they by naming it Happy Dad they're showing that like, okay, because they easily could have went with like a Nelk seltzer or
Yeah,
like a
like
Nelk
self-
or like a Full Send seltzer, right?
yeah.
But by calling it Happy Dad, obviously they want this brand to go on for a long time, right? But they run basically, honestly, little to no risk with launching this because the initial excitement it's similar to the Pink Whitney, right? Like from
Yeah.
Spittin' Chicklets, right? I've never liked that beverage, to be honest. I didn't think it was great. I think it's way too overpriced for what it was, but um,
Shout out, Ryan.
there's so many eyeballs on the launch date, right? So they'll sell,
Oh, yeah.
say, 1 million units, right? And of that million units, 80% of it thinks it's terrible. They
Yeah.
still got the initial, like that one-time purchase from 800,000 people,
Yeah.
right?
And then when they move into another state, they get another million units bought, and then another state, and then it comes to Canada. Like yeah, you're right. Just because of their following, like my brother loves them, and I watch them. Not religiously, but I definitely watch them. And I remember when my brother watched them, and they were like, filming pranks in their minivan,
Mhm.
driving across Canada, right? And now they built their brand up to like something that is absolutely like insane from where they were, and now there's no risk for them to release this seltzer. And you're right, if they release it, I think they're starting in California, and then they release it in different states, their following is big enough that there's absolutely no risk for them, because even if it's terrible, even if it tastes like, even if the cans are water, even if there's water in the cans, they will get the initial buy, and
Yeah.
that's really it, right?
And
And
their diehards are gonna their diehards are gonna be that the continuous customer, basically, right? So it'll be because man, I could talk about this stuff all day because there's so many, right? Even Emma
oh
Chamberlain, like
yeah,
Chamberlain Coffee, like that is such an incredible brand, and
oh yeah,
I almost need to start making a podcast for like the creator economy and stuff like that too,
that's
right?
right.
But it
I
does
would love
all
to come and talk to you about that. I could talk about that for hours too. Let's.
well. It's a big thing that I've always tried to instill with my work, right? In terms of athletes, I think you can attest to this. I've always tried to preach to you guys about building your personal brand and like posting frequently, especially in the season when there's so many eyeballs on you.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like, yeah, I remember you always preached about that, about just helping out and like building the brand of AutoU in general, and AutoU football, right? Like the more eyes we have, the more followers, the more people that are interested and like see our stuff, our photos, or like the game tape, or anything, right? That we're traveling today, and we're going to be in, Hamilton. Like all
With your
that
Tim
kind of
Hortons cup and no free brand deals.
stuff. That's exactly why I chose it. Yeah. No free brand deals, never any free brand deals. But yeah, you're totally right. Like, yeah, just yeah, for even auto youth football, just building your brand and being able to, reach out to so many people, it's just so beneficial. And I remember like our social media for auto youth football was like top tier. Like it is top tier, right? Like it was crazy when we were, voting on people for like OUA player of the year and all that, and the votes and the support and everything. And even like when they were ranking socials, like our social media team, obviously Rob Greeley, was awesome. Like it was the best in the OUA. Like I like just looking at everyone's socials is best in the OUA. And but it's hard work though. Like it takes a lot of buy-in and a lot of people to make that happen. So absolutely.
Mhm. I'm glad you like think of the social account like that because it all goes into the player experience too, right? Like I think in my opinion, like obviously like when you get recognition and stuff like that, like it is nice to see that, right? Like when you're doing something, and athletes, man, you guys invest so much time
Yeah.
into the craft, right? So the fact that it can just be amplified a little bit and there can be more eyeballs on you guys for it, and like people can just enjoy what's going on a little bit more. I think that is worth the investment there into the time of growing the brand, right? So going into uOttawa, though, I mean, obviously we've been kind of all over the place, which is typically what happens with,
That's okay.
but it's absolutely fine. I mean, for the most part, this is just, we just chat. Like, there's no real structure to this
Yeah,
at
no
all.
script, no structure, just chat with whatever we want. UFC,
Yeah.
we were talking
Well,
to
man,
every
I
every
think you're a big sports guy, and so am I. But let's kind of dive into uOttawa and how you ended up a Gigi, because I mean, you could have went to the school across the canal, because obviously I'm assuming you wanted to be that hometown kid, right? And there is two football programs. I'm not sure what the other one is, but
well, I'm not even gonna name it. So yeah, no, like my whole family's here. I've always loved the city of Ottawa. Like I'm born and raised here. Um, it's just an amazing city. And I knew when I was playing Myers and I started in OBFL in the provincial league, I knew that like I loved playing in Ottawa. Like we'd go to the GTA and we'd go play other teams and all that. And when I started to get to the age where there was some recruiting going on, like I had some teams talk to me from out east, and there were even like University of Calgary was at one of our practices, and they were chatting to me about maybe coming out for a visit and all that. And then Ottawa and the other team in Ottawa. So like just there, I don't know. There was kind of like a big decision to make if I wanted to go play anywhere but in Ottawa. But I knew that I love this city. Like I there's a lot of hate around this city that it's boring or whatever. I know I've heard it all. I get it, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I love playing in Ottawa. When former coach Barisi would come up to me and be at our practices, he's like, "Hey man, like I know like you're from Ottawa," and he's like, if you do want to stay here, like there's like we want you on the football team, right? So it it was kind of a tough decision whether to stay or leave, but like at the end of the day, I really wanted to stay in Ottawa. I have no regrets from staying here, and it made my choice a little easier that I was able like had an offer from both the universities here, and it was just it just made it a lot easier. I love calling Ottawa home. It was almost a no brainer.
For sure. Honestly, man, there is something special about the GG football alumni, like, and just being a part of that organization. Obviously, I never put the pads on, but man, like I get messages. I got message from alumni this week,
Yeah,
just being like, "Hey, like, looks like everything's great. Like, hope you're doing well. The GGs are missing you," kind of thing. And it's just like, man, like it's incredible, right? Like, and these are guys who played like, geez, like 70s, 80s,
yeah,
right? Like, and I was like support staff member from like 2016 to 2020, basically.
right. Yeah, it is like when I came to Ottawa U, like the amount of like you're right, like alumni and like former players or just like anyone that was invested in Ottawa U, like it just felt right. Like the culture here is incredible, like absolutely incredible. The support from the alumni and everyone else is crazy. Like I have and another reason that I chose Ottawa U was because one of my family members, so my uncle's stepfather, so my aunt's father, I guess, played at Ottawa U. He played like in like the 50s and the 60s. Like he's like I think he's mid 80s now, and he was a
Okay.
quarterback and he was a safety as well. He played both ways, of course, because why not put your quarterback at safety?
That's what they did back in the day,
That's
man.
right, right? So, and every time I see him, I only see him like probably in big family gatherings at Christmas and Thanksgiving. But he is so invested still at Ottawa U. He comes to all the games. He has his Letterman jacket on almost every time I see him because he wants to make sure I remember that he played at Ottawa U and he was big time at Ottawa U. So yeah, the rich history, the alumni, the culture is just incredible at Ottawa U. And any recruits like pondering going to other schools or coming to Ottawa U, man, the support is unreal. Well, like you said, like people reaching out to you like after running the socials and all that, it like that's insane, right? Like
Mhm.
that just speaks volumes to how much support and how much the alumni care. Like we have a great alumni and support system here.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in terms of just recent news, OUA is back.
I saw
You
that.
are going to get a season. How's it?
Ye-
Well, I mean, thing is, there's no guarantee in sport, and there's definitely no guarantee in the day to day that we currently have going
Yeah,
on. But as of right now, it looks like football is back, and you're getting a final season.
yeah, man. It's like when I saw that post that they had the other day from the commissioner or whoever it was, I was ecstatic. Like at least on our side and like the OUA side that they're committed to giving all like the OUA athletes a season, right? And I couldn't be more happy, especially someone that's like was supposed to have their last year and graduate last year, and
You
then
postpone graduation, man. A lot of people are going to be like, "Hey, don't do that." But I
man,
mean,
you know what? Like, I can't lie. At the start, when the football season got canceled last year, I was crushed. Absolutely. Like, there's nothing. Ask any athlete. There's nothing more that you want to do is than to play in your senior year. Like the senior year, the last home game, the last Friday night light game. Like just being a senior and playing your senior year is so important. Like all those NCAA guys that didn't get to play in March Madness and all that, like, you feel for any senior last year or people graduating high school, graduating university that didn't get like a real or proper like send off, right? There's no closure at all. So when the season got canceled last year, I was pretty upset. Like as anyone would be, I was pretty upset. And originally I was like, you know what? That's what happens. I'm going to graduate this year. And yeah, that's it. And then, I was kind of like, I was almost sold in just graduating and then moving on. Right. And I'm like, you know what? I had 4 years. I played 4 years. Like I have another year left in the bag, but it's been a good ride. And then, I talk with, my support system, my girlfriend, my mom, my dad, and my brother and all that. And, we had many conversations about it. And they're like, you know what? It's an extra 4 months. Instead of graduating in June, I graduate in December, couple months. And you know what? You're not going to regret playing your last year. Like, a couple years down the road, when you look back on your career at Ottawa U, like I didn't want to regret anything. So playing in this year coming up in the fall, crossing fingers that OPH and everything and all the other health districts are like giving it a go. But playing in this last year is going to be even more special. That you get a second chance, right? So I originally I was wasn't too sure that I was coming back, but after talking to everyone and thinking long and hard about it, like I'm really excited to being able to get my 5th year. Like I just didn't want to live with that regret for the rest of my life. Like it's yeah. So no, I'm really happy to come back. Like I'm ready to work with the boys again. I've missed them too much.
no, 100%. And I think what's important, in all of that with, we talk about there's no guarantee in sport and stuff like that, and you don't want to have any regrets. I think, in terms of any like physical activity or like, athletes and movement and stuff, like in order to like basically don't cut it short when you could still play or still be athletic or still go like it is. And like I look at it and it's like, oh, like even now, like being removed from like the competitive sport, and now it's just like the physical fitness. So the times that I get out to maybe go for a run or go for a walk or like go work out or something like that, right? Like it is such a privilege to be able to do that, that like your body allows you to do that. And I think we take that for granted so much. And I think that's the biggest thing, is to just think of it in that sense where it's like, man, like it's a privilege to be able to go out and go for a hike or go for a run today, kind of thing, right? Like tomorrow there's no guarantee that I'm going to be able to do that, right? Or in that ability might be taken from me in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So it's like, hey, like if you can do it now and you can keep going, like do it for as long as you possibly can. That makes sense to you.
Absolutely, right? Like that was a huge thing that we talked about as a family when I was deciding what to do. You're right, there is no guarantee of tomorrow. And like I if you ask like anyone that's like a little bit older and like 3/4 of like the way through their life, like anyone older that you would ask what they miss the most is probably being young and being able to do everything that made them happy and everything, like whether it's sports, whether it's hiking, whether it's being physically active or anything, right? Like that's what people, I would say, miss the most. Like even talking to my parents, like my dad wishes he could throw a ball from across the diamond, but like his shoulder, now that he's 55, is shot, right? Like he's had surgeries, he can barely throw a ball to save his life, right? So and
Throwing him under the bus there.
yeah, right. Like, sorry, Dad, you were a great third baseman, but like time's up. So, but like people, like just talking to people like that, like absolutely, you don't want to regret anything in life. And I think that was the one thing that we talked about is like, would you regret not playing your 5th year if you had a chance to do it? Like, it's not like I don't have a chance. Like, I have a chance to go back for half a semester, play ball, and do it. Then the decision's easy, right? To go back and be able to do that, it's a no-brainer. So you're totally right. You're absolutely right.
And I mean, you're going to be a Vanier Cup champion at the end of it too. So,
like, isn't that awesome? Like, I'm gonna go back. I put off graduation for half a semester. I'm gonna go back. We're gonna win the Vanier Cup, and it's gonna be the greatest story in sports history. It's gonna be crazy, right?
exactly. I mean, it's basically just written there, right? I mean, the head coach Marcel is back, the one who brought us to a Vanier
That was the
before,
baby. Yep.
right?
He's bringing
No, I mean,
mentality.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the future of the GGs, man. I like, even, this coming season and 5-10 years time, like, I think that program, it's looking promising.
Yeah, man. Super super exciting getting Marcel and as the head coach. Like you said, the Vanier Cup winner in 2000. He has so much experience, and he's got like the utmost integrity for the game. Like, he's an absolute genius. He's like a great person to like have a conversation with. Like, he is a really really outstanding head coach, and like his winning experience is just a cherry on top. Like, he has a very very powerful like winning mentality, and I think that's kind of spread across all the guys this year. Like a big difference from last year to this year with Marcel is that there is a huge kind of like shift in culture and a winning mentality. Like, we always thought that we could win the Vanier, and like that was the end goal at the end of the year. But there's something about this year and talking to the guys that it's like, man, like, no, there's nothing, like, we're winning the Vanier. There's no excuse, and we won't accept anything less. Like, that is what's happening this year.
Something different in the water now. See, that's
Man,
what it is.
it's crazy what a little shift like that can do. And yeah, any of the guys that come on here or like have been on here can tell you, like, he's really shifted the waters. And yeah, there's a different mentality. So anyone watching from any of the OUA teams or anyone across Canada, you heard it here first, man. Van Cup's going right over there.
Yeah, I love to hear it. I love to hear it. So, dude, honestly, this is everything that I had for you. I mean, this is part of the show where I hand the show over to you. It's up to you, man. You can talk about whatever you want. Life lesson, childhood story. The show is yours.
Man, what do I want to get into? Well, I do want to get into a little bit of baseball. I know you're a little bit of a Dodgers fan.
I am.
I know you're just a little bit. Like, it's not like you had the Dodgers hat all the time on when you're at practice and we'd always rag each other. So I know you're a bit of a Dodgers fan. And
I'm a huge Dodgers fan. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah. No, really, you're a huge Dodgers fan. I know that. But maybe get into a little bit of the Jays and all that. Like, I don't know if you've been watching them a little bit this year.
I never watched the Jays. That's a waste of time.
Come on, man. They are like the Sens in like 3 years. They're the most exciting team in the MLB right now. It's awesome, right? Like, they are, man. Like, the young. Okay, I know you're biased. I'm biased. We're both biased. It's okay, but like, the stuff that Vladdy's doing and Bo and Hyunjin Ryu, and like there's some special pieces on the Jays right now. I know the Dodgers are stacked. They're always stacked to the gills. They really are.
They started out hot this year, but
yeah,
I mean, it's
off, a little bit.
Third in NL West. We'll see what happens. The run support's been brutal. I mean, Trevor Bauer hasn't been able to get anybody to help him.
And I love that guy. Like, I know a lot of people have mixed emotions about that guy. I love the way he plays the game and how he like carries himself and all that. I love Trevor Bauer. I think that was awesome. I think that was absolutely awesome that you guys got him. He is. I was hoping the Jays would get him. Like, there was kind of some talks about that, and I absolutely love the guy.
Yeah, I seen that. That actually, well, it's funny we mentioned Nelk before. I think Nelk almost transpired that conversation because Trevor Bauer in the offseason when he was like deciding where to go.
Yeah, and he had one by a shoestring. He was teasing everybody.
Pretty much, yeah. He was participating in I guess a fundraiser. It was a beer pong tournament that Nelk was hosting. It was a virtual one, right?
Yeah.
They had like Machine Gun Kelly and all of that. And
Yeah.
I think there was some dialect back and forth of being like, "Oh, got to go up to Canada, man." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I love Canada." So I think that's honestly where it kind of like transpired that
Yeah.
part. But he was also toying with everybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He like I remember that the Nelka like the virtual beer pong. They had a lot of big stars on there. But yeah, I totally remember that is probably where the Jays kind of conspiracy about him coming to Toronto
Mhm.
like happened, right? But yeah, his free agency was insane. Like there was about a million different teams that they're like, oh yeah, we're getting him. He's saying, oh, I love San Fran. I love to live in San Fran. Oh, I really like New York, man. Oh, I really like Toronto. Like his free agency was one of like the craziest ones I've seen in a while because it's like a handful of teams thought they were going to get him.
Well, it's so funny because he was like realistically though, like the decision was obvious. Like hometown,
Yeah,
like the dot, like he was just toying. Like
I know.
they were coming off a World Series. Like he wants to win. Like
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I will say the Jays got a good young core. This baseball is actually like if baseball grows up, basically, like they get rid of suspending players for flexing, but yet won't touch players who cheat their way to a World Series.
yeah, exactly. Have
If
stuff in
yeah,
their gloves.
if they stop suspending players for flexing and celebrating,
Yeah,
and actually like really embrace the young talent that they have and let them soar to who they are and
yeah.
this is an exciting time for baseball.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've never agreed with all like the not being able to wear certain cleats because it's not league protocol or not being able to celebrate like at all or whatever when like they really should be looking at people destroying the integrity of the game, banging on trash cans and all that. Like they really like I don't know what's more important is either regulating that or regulating someone celebrating or
Mm.
not wearing proper attire or not being able to wear certain cleats for you like whoever on whatever day, right? Like on Mother's Day or whatever, like being only able to wear it like in warm up or whatever it is, right? Like it just
Yeah.
crazy stuff like that that's happening in like the MLB and even the NFL is like that too, right? Like
Yeah.
it's really too bad that it's kind of gone down that road, but no, absolutely. Baseball is super exciting right now. I know there's probably not a ton of baseball fans. I'm a huge baseball fan. Huge baseball fan. I know people think it's boring and it's like golf and all that. And there must be a trend because I love golf too. Love playing golf, love watching golf.
Hey, Jelley, it's just hate to break it to you, man. You're a boring
I'm just
individual.
bored. I play on the offensive line. I love baseball. I love playing baseball. I love watching and playing golf. Like I'm just boring. I love boring stuff, but that's okay. That's just who I am. So no, you're right. The Jays look really promising this year. If they can get Springer healthy, because that's a lot of money to sit on the bench. Springer, if you're watching this, I know you like Greels Reels. If you're watching this, heal up that quad, man, and let's get going.
All right, man. I love it. I'll be sure to send this to Springer's team for sure.
Yes, absolutely. I'll send it to Springer's team, dude. Like get some massages on that quad. Start running the bases hard, and like we need you. We need you. So I don't know, man. That's really all I got. I just wanted to sprinkle in a little bit of Jays because I know you love the Dodgers. So you never know. Little Jays Dodgers action in the finals. You never know.
Dude, it was so interesting because obviously, I mean, you can't get two polar opposite AL East versus NL West, and it happened. Like we play each other like every 5 years, and I was actually in Toronto the last time that they. I think the Dodgers were in. They might have been there since, but
Yeah.
anyways, I could only make it to. I extended my trip when I was in Toronto just so I could get to the first game of that series. And I honestly, I was like, this is going to be the one game that the Dodgers lose throughout this series because it's just the pitching matchup. It was a young, talented Stroman versus like I want to say like our fifth guy at the time, right? So I'm like, okay, and yeah, Kershaw's going up against this guy. Like that's a dub the next day.
Yeah.
And then whoever it was, I think Greinke was even the third matchup,
Man,
right?
that's
So
a
it's like,
nasty unit. That is
yeah,
nasty.
well, it's still nasty, man.
No,
Like
it
you got
still is. Like, yeah,
Kershaw
like,
Bauer, the pitching core over there has been incredible. But
yeah,
so I was literally going, I'm like, oh, this is definitely going to be the one game. Like, of course, just my luck, right? Like, I'm going to see them lose in Toronto, but whatever. Like, it's still unreal to see them.
yeah,
Like,
see your team, right? Like,
especially because I was still living in Newfoundland at that time, right?
yeah,
Anyways, so yeah, what I think happens. They lose, and I'm like leaving, and dude, like I'm getting chirped big time
no
by
way.
Toronto fans. Like Nat, like is this like Toronto Montreal, or is this like Toronto and Tampa even, or something like that, or the Red Sox? Or I was like, literally, like these guys are shouting at me and like, take that jersey off, like, and I
Man,
won't say like the
how long ago
selective
was that?
words. This was 2015, 2016. This was 2016.
That's brutal.
And as I was leaving the arena, and I literally, I was like, why are you so like aggressive? I was like, we see, like, we're in the NL West. Like, I see
Yeah,
you, we see you like every like 3-4 seat.
we,
Like, what?
we literally couldn't build a rivalry if we tried.
Literally,
Like,
I was like, unless we keep meeting in the World Series for like maybe 3 consecutive years or something like that.
yeah,
Like, so I was so confused, but yeah. Anyways,
that's crazy. I can't believe that happened to you in Toronto. That's awful.
well,
You
like,
know
I
what?
mean, that's the standard Toronto sports fan. Let's be
Well, I was gonna
honest,
say it
but
was probably Leaf fans with a Blue Jays jersey on that day. So that's probably what it was.
it literally made no sense. I was just like, okay, like, there wasn't any hatred to even go back because I'm like, this just doesn't make any sense. Like
Right? Like,
this,
that's kind of I'm very surprised that happened. Like
I
it's not.
know.
You're right. It's not like it's the Yankees. It's not like it's Boston coming to town. Like I would get it. It's like Sens Leafs game, Sens Habs
Yeah.
game. Like man, if you're wearing the wrong jersey at the end of the night, you're in trouble, right?
You're
Like
gonna hear it,
I've
yeah.
been to my
But
share of Leafs and Sens games, and it's not pretty. But like, yeah, like I can't believe like someone like the Dodgers. That's like someone like I didn't even know like Arizona coming to Ottawa and playing the Sens and be like, "You suck" and all that, and giving them hang. It's like, man, we literally play Arizona like once a year. Like, let's
yeah,
calm down. So no, that's crazy.
exactly.
That's too bad that happened to you.
I mean, I did. It was funny, if anything, and it's a
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
It just got me 5 extra minutes on this podcast,
that's
basically,
true.
right? Like
Yeah,
that's all.
that's right. I wonder
But
when
hey,
the next,
man,
yeah, yeah. I wonder when the next time the Dodgers are coming to like I mean once they open back up in
yeah,
Toronto, like I wonder when the next time they'll be here. Well, you'll have to get out to that game. You'll have to get out to the series.
no, for sure, man. I miss Ontario so much, dude.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
great
when you're,
province.
yeah, when you're ever back in town, we'll all get together and hit a patio or something like that, or go
Well,
to the
dude,
gym
I mean, the
or
next
whatever.
time I'm in town is probably going to be for the Panda game. You know that, like,
There you go.
yeah, dude. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. It's been great catching up, man.
Man, it's absolute pleasure. I do it again. Once you get back to the second round of people coming on for a second time, we'll be live. We can go live in the studio. We'll be, it absolute pleasure, Rob.
I'm hoping for a Greels Real Studio one day. We'll see. We'll
Right?
try.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd go on, just have a bunch of the boys on and just sit around and chat and all that. I would absolutely do that. Anyways, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. Love what you're doing. Everyone, like, subscribe. Man, blow this guy up. He's the real deal. I'm telling you, he is the real deal.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in to another episode of Greels Reels. Honestly, Brett just said it best, and I'll let it finish off at that. Hey, hit that like button, subscribe, leave us a review. I appreciate it. And in the meantime, stay best kind.